G'day and welcome to the Outer Side. I'm Tony and today I'm joined by Josh Green. Josh is a professional dirt bike rider. He's been in the scene for over 15 years with success both in Australia and internationally. He's the reigning Australian Off-Road Championship winner from last year and recently retired. Josh, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, mate.
So you have ridden bikes for a very long time now. How did it all start?
Yeah, pretty much as long as I can remember. I don't really remember much of a childhood besides riding bikes. So I started in '96. Basically, a friend of mine from school raced motocross and grew up at school with him. And basically, he had an old bike and I jumped on it. And his parents had sort of already teed up my parents to buy it without me knowing, and it rolled from there, right? So I grew up doing a lot of motocross. Started doing enduro, raced a bit of amcross, just raced. Every weekend was just racing with my parents. And gelled more with the off-road stuff just because I liked the thought of going racing and racing my bike all day. Whereas motocross, we'd drive 12 hours and we'd do 3 10-minute motos for the weekend and come home. I was like, no.
Okay, so for people who aren't as well versed in the differences, what is the main difference between motocross and enduro?
Yeah, okay, so motocross is basically like a couple of K long groomed track built, purpose built with machinery. It's got jumps and berms and corners, the starting gates. You all start, 30 bikes and take off, and it's either a 5-lap or a 10-minute moto, or when you get to Australian national level as a senior, it's 30-minute motos. So that's motocross. And then off-road, basically similar concept, but not man-made tracks. They're just pushed through the bush with a tractor or a slasher. They're bunted and they're a lot longer. A lap will be anywhere from 8 minutes to 15 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Whereas motocross, under a 2-minute lap time, but
Yep.
you'll do 5 or 6 in a race. So it's a lot more, you race the clock more than you race competitors,
Okay.
obviously. We do have events cross country and desert racing where you all line up and start and you might have 4 hours continuously, racing. So off-road's got a lot more variations of what it is, whereas motocross is just line up on the start gate, race for a set amount of laps. That's it,
Okay, and are the bikes pretty similar or are they different between moto and enduro?
Definitely similar. Obviously, enduro bikes have to be a little bit more forgiving because you're riding over like tree roots and rocks, and the course conditions change so much throughout the lap and throughout the day. Whereas motocross is it's a manicured track. So if you're going to a certain track and it's sand, you have a sand setup.
Yep.
So yeah, a little bit. Motocross bikes are probably a bit firmer, a bit more aggressive because the track, you can hit
Bit more predictable.
Hit stuff a bit harder. Whereas off-road, it has to be a bit more forgiving. So,
And are they 4 strokes, 2 strokes, a mix? What are they sort of running these days?
yeah, mainly 4 strokes.
Yep.
4 strokes seem to be the powerhouse things. They're a good bike. 2 strokes are still hard enduro, a good thing because they're pushing up, stupid hills. And trying to come down gnarly obstacles. So the bit lighter bike and stuff. So 2 strokes are still alive in enduro racing, but it's more hard enduro, which I haven't really dabbled too much into. Yeah.
So you've raced for how long before you retired late last year?
26 years or something ridiculous. So
Wow.
I raced from '96. I turned senior in 2007, and I've been professional since then. 17 years, all but as a professional racer. Raced in Europe for 2 years when I was like 18, 19. I just packed gear bag and moved to Europe and tried to race World Enduro. Yeah, so it was pretty wild. I grew up really quick.
Yeah, you would, right?
I just had no opportunity. I literally had never met the crew I was moving in with or the team, and I just 2 gear bags. I flew to England, and I got off the plane in a blizzard, walking around looking for someone I've never met, going, "Hey, you taking me home?" Or?
So how did that even transpire? Because we're talking early days of the internet. Social media wasn't even a thing then. So how did that even happen?
I rode for Kawasaki here at the time, and my teammate was Toby Price, and everyone knows him. So we were teammates, we were really good friends, and family, team friends. There was a TM importer in Cessnock, John Hall. He's a legend in our sport. He made the 4 Day happen, and all these different things. He was the TM importer and had contacts with TM in Europe. And so originally the deal was to try and get Toby to Europe because he won here. And then I was going to do another year here and then follow footsteps. I don't know what happened with Toby, whether he got cold feet or, got more money here or whatever,
Yep.
but he decided to stay here. And I just emailed and said, I'm coming now, let's go.
Wow.
So they were a bit hesitant, but they were just like, okay. Well,
So
Toby's
as a
not
young
coming.
bloke, you went by yourself?
Yep.
You just packed up
Sold
and flew to Europe?
sold whatever I could, and basically just packed 2 gear bags and flew to Europe and went, let's see how this turns out.
That's intense, man.
So yeah, that was wild. Really cool experiences, really bad experiences as everyone. Europe's not that nice to live in. It's not the coolest. Cool sightseeing and cool to see things, but there's no place like Australia, right?
Yeah. Is that the sort of culture, like not as welcoming, not as open with outsiders, or what do you mean by that?
Just hard. I'd finish my training on riding with my mechanics. They'd all go home to their friends and family. I'd go back to a room.
Yeah. So pretty lonely?
Very lonely. I didn't have any money. If I had money behind me or had more money myself, then it would have been a little bit easier because I could have just bought a car and gone places and done things.
Course,
Whereas I just got given a rattly old rusty team van and went, go to the gym, go ride your bike, go back to the house. And that was pretty much my life. I was lucky enough I was England Island based, so at least I could go to shops and buy food and it was English, you know.
Yeah, of
But
course.
then traveling through Europe, it's just everyone, there's amazing places, but it's old, it's dingy, you rock up, the food's, you don't know what you're going to get. We've ordered meals at restaurants because we didn't know what it was, and it comes out and we're like, I'm not eating that. Right? Let's just order something else, and different plates come out. But yeah, the racing was amazing. Really, I really enjoyed the racing. It's so hyped, so big, so many fans. You know, the fans are just lining the track, and you're nearly hitting them. There's no rules. Whereas here, it's a bit more restricted with rules, and it's not as spectatory. And it's just population. You can 3 or 4 countries in a day.
Yeah,
so,
right. And that, where you were racing over there, was it across Europe or was it the UK or everywhere?
Everywhere, all through Europe.
Yeah, wow.
Spain, Portugal, Poland, Slovakia, Italy, France, England, Ireland, Argentina.
That's
I've
phenomenal,
done a fair bit. So the only place I haven't actually been is America. I've never dabbled in America.
Yeah, okay.
So I did Europe, and it was right after GFC. Mm-hmm. So money wasn't the greatest, and it's like most motorsport, you need money behind you.
Of course,
right, to get there. I was lucky enough; I got the opportunity to go for no money.
Yep.
And basically, my team boss was just giving me cash every week to put fuel in vans and whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it was a really cool experience, really big opportunity. And we had a few bike dramas, and I could have won a championship, but bikes were playing up and things that just went wrong. It was just a bad season. And so my team boss basically just said, hey, cash isn't good. Let's just race in England. Forget the world championship. And to me, I was a bit arrogant. I was young. I'd packed my life up to live the dream racing world championship. So if I wasn't doing that, I was going home.
Yeah, fair enough too.
So I pulled the pin. I did about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. I come home and finished racing some races here because TM was good to me here. When I come home, there was always a bike and parts and stuff.
Yeah, nice.
So they were really good. And then I signed with Yamaha.
Yeah, right. So you were a Yamaha factory rider for a long time, right?
Yeah, 13 years.
So what does that mean for someone that's uninitiated? What does it mean to be a factory rider?
Basically, you ride for a team that's funded by the factory. Yep. So, Yamaha Australia funds the racing. I wasn't through a shop. I wasn't through, just buying bikes or anything. Mm-hmm. So basically, I got paid a salary from Yamaha. All my bikes, all my travel, all my expenses. I had mechanics. We have it's a full mobile workshop that travels around and races. So I fly in or drive in, and trucks there, mechanics there, bikes are done. Parts are unlimited. Just whatever it takes to try and win races. So
amazing.
Factory riders back in the day had more custom bikes.
Yep.
They would modify bikes to suit things, whereas our days, my bikes weren't that special. We obviously have a good knowledge of what we like as a rider, and different techniques and styles. So my team boss knows how to set suspension up to suit me.
Yep,
and
the way you ride.
And then obviously every 3 or 4 years there's a new model, so it's a new chassis. We've got to relearn what works and what doesn't. But the bikes now, this current model bike is amazing. I could race that out of the box. It's so good.
Crazy.
Whereas my bikes, years back, we were modifying frames and welding stuff on,
Wow.
and changing, angles of, steering and all sorts of things. So bikes have come a long way. A factory rider now you still ride for the factory, but it's not like it was back.
Yeah, so I guess for a manufacturer, then there's probably two sides to it, right? There's a marketing aspect, obviously, marketing the brand.
Yeah.
But then there's also some R&D, and I'm guessing that some of that, the engineering and the technology that gets used in racing then filters back into bikes that are available to the public.
For sure. I've fortunately been a big part of the development of some of these new bikes. So obviously, normally that goes to America and Japan, and there's a couple of Australian guys that go and do that. Through COVID, they couldn't do that, so they were actually shipping pre-production bikes here.
Wow.
And I was doing a lot of testing and development on my tracks here.
Yep.
My team boss AJ, he was 4-time Australian champion in the racing that I do before he took on the team role. He does a lot of testing and development. He's always back and forth, overseas and things. So I did a lot of testing and development. It's crazy. You don't get too much knowledge of what's going on. They just go, here's 4 sets of suspension. You just tell us which one's the best.
Yeah, okay.
So we give feedback on, what we like, what we don't like, and basically same thing, but it's an ECU thing, it's a tyre thing, we test everything, and it's always a separate test.
Yeah, right, okay.
But yeah, it's cool. It's a cool process to understand that. It's difficult because, I rode this model bike 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
And then I got to try and line up and race on a bike that I know isn't as good as what's coming.
Yeah, right. That'd be challenging.
So they don't like to use races as much because it can play on that. But I was headstrong enough that I've got a job to race that bike.
Yeah, you can separate.
And then I've got a job to develop this bike.
Yep.
So that was cool, and current model stuff's amazing.
So when we look at sort of the championship that you were racing in most recently, what's the sort of split? So you mentioned there's obviously factory riders, and then there's shops, and then is there anyone self-funded? Are there any like privateers that are out there just having a crack?
Yeah, so the cool thing with the Australian Off-Road Championship is there is so much, hey buddy, there's such a big field. So AORC runs on juniors.
Yeah, okay.
We had 400 something entries at one of our last rounds.
Wow.
And 90% of that is self-funded families, kids, apprentices, people, everyone trying to chase that dream to become to the top level. Pro riders, there's a handful. There's probably 20 guys that make some sort of income from it.
Sure.
There's probably only, I'd say, 5 nowadays that actually do it almost full time.
Yeah, okay.
It was bigger a couple of years back. There was a lot more full-time people. And then a couple of manufacturers pulled back a little bit through COVID because
of course.
Sales and, so it's sort of stopped a little bit. Yamaha didn't. Yamaha was super strong. They just kept, hey, we need to win. This is what we've got to do. Let's pay this. You reckon? You're coming up.
All right, we've got a new guest on the podcast here. This is Cairo for anyone that's watching on the video.
He's dangerous. If you look at him, he looks dangerous.
Yeah, he's heaps dangerous.
Yeah. Are you coming up or not? Or down?
No.
Up or down? Come on. Get up. Come on.
Please stand by. We're just getting him settled in.
All right, you want a mic?
So there's the AORC, so they're rounds.
Yep, so there's a 12-round series.
Yep.
Variation of different events. So we have sprints, which is basically like a 8-10 minute lap, and you race as many laps as we can fit the whole field through. So it's like depending if it's dusty or wet, but 10-second intervals or 30-second intervals, and basically one at a time, and fastest time for the day wins.
Yep.
A lot of pressure because you're pushing every second, like every second counts, right? You're right, bud?
Yes.
Every second counts. So, it's pressure. Like every mistake, you're losing time. And then we have cross countries. Cross countries are difficult to run in Australia, usually because it's too dry and dusty.
Okay.
You got 30 guys going into a bush loop.
Mm-hmm. And you can't see.
So dust is an issue. But we do run them, so that they're basically 30-minute lap, 20 to 30-minute lap, and basically 3 hours line up, start, fuel stops, the works. And then we have an enduro format, which is also difficult to run just because it's such a big setup. But basically, you're doing like 250 to 280k days. You start at a point,
Wow.
whether it could be in a town, and you might ride out of town, and then you have a special stage on a property, and then you'll trail ride again, and you have basically like liaison sections where you have to be at set times, set segments on set times, and you can't be late to checkpoints. And,
Okay.
you have to work on your own bikes.
Yeah, right.
Change your own tyres, fix your own things. Like that's part of the enduro format. So that's the AORC has a good mix of everything. We also have the 4 Day Enduro, which is basically 4 days of enduro, which is the liaison thing. So same thing, 200 to 300 Ks a day. We've got 15-minute work period in the evenings to work on your own bike.
15 minutes.
15 minutes. And that's including riding in and out of the pit lane. So there's a checkpoint at the start. Basically, we'll get there, 5-10 minutes before the time's due, and we'll have a bum bag of tools, and we'll start ripping rim locks and axles and everything loose.
Crazy.
We'll ride into the pits with everything loose. Our team's there with everything. They can pass us tools and have tyres and everything ready.
But you're on the spanners.
We're ripping tyres off, changing, and we run Moose tubes, which is a solid tube, which is easy to change when you know how to, but I can do a front tyre in under a minute.
Crazy.
Like it becomes such a, you just smash it. So, but then if you damage your bike, I did a radiator or a clutch cover, or I need to replace a clutch, you've also got to fit that in as well as 2 tyres. And then if you don't have new tyres every day, you're sacrificing speed the next day.
Yep.
So, and basically the 4 day here is the biggest sort of standalone enduro event. It's replicated off what we call the 6 day, which is what goes to Europe. It's in Europe every year. And basically that's the Olympics of our sport. So each country picks their 4 best senior riders and their 3 best junior riders and their 3 best ladies riders, and they go and represent the country group. The group time is what the country is.
So is that the ISDE?
That's the ISDE.
Right. So you're part of that team as well?
I've represented Australia 7 times, I think.
Yep.
I think I paint a helmet every time we go, so that's the only
nice.
reason I can remember, because I think there's 7 helmets in the cabinets.
And that happens in a different country each
every
time?
Year. Yeah, every year. It's been in Australia once, 92, I believe. Obviously, I was too young, but yeah, every year, different country. So this year they're going to Spain, I believe. Yeah.
So then places you've never ridden, so you just pack all your gear up, head over with the team, and then you just in some random location, and you've just got to send it.
Set up, and what's crazy, it's a pretty cool thing. The guys I bang bars with and have a rivalry with all year are now my teammates.
Yeah, okay.
So it's kind of weird. You get this real weird bond with guys that you normally wouldn't say hate, but have a rivalry with. You know, like there's that race. Oh, I don't like that guy. I want to beat him. But now we're teammates.
It's a bit like the state of origin, right? Like you could be playing a club round one week, and then the next week you got to pass the ball to them.
Yeah, and so you're working together, and someone might have a problem out on the trail, and you're supposed to only work on your own bike and carry your own things. But if my Australian teammate has a problem and I've got the tool to fix it, I'm helping him.
Yeah, of course.
We're pushing it behind a hedge, and we're doing what we can, right? So, it's kind of cool. It's cool to represent your country. Like it's a cool thing. Yeah. Wearing the green and gold's epic, and we were the first team. I was part of the first team to win a gold medal for Australia as a team, and I finished second in the 250 class that year. So that was a pretty big achievement, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that year was the first. I think it's the first and only time a country has won all 3 categories. So we won the women's, the juniors, and the seniors.
Clean sweep, mate. Yeah.
And it's the first time the trophy had left European countries.
That would have felt good.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
Yep.
It really put Australia on the map as like world level riders. It was pretty crazy. So to be a part of that was pretty special.
Yeah.
It's a pain. It's such a pain to do. It's a pain. Like everyone's like, oh, represent your country. Yeah, but it's a pain. So shipping container gets sent 6 months before.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we have bikes, parts, spare boots, spare everything. And like, it sucks for the teams too. Like my team, Yamaha, we might have 2 seniors, a junior, and, a chick on a Yamaha. There's 5 bikes gone.
Yep.
And it's not only 6 months there, it's 4 or 5 months to get back too. So they're like 12 months gone.
Yeah, so it's a big investment for the teams as well to support that.
Yeah, huge. We couldn't do it without them.
Yep.
How can you spend, drop 20 grand on parts and bikes and everything and just have it sitting there see ya, it's gone.
And aside from obviously the marketing aspect for the team,
Yeah.
is there any prize money in this stuff? Like, is there a return for the teams aside from the marketing?
Not for the 6 day, no, nothing. And even like AORC, there's no prize money.
Yeah, okay.
The desert racing I've done, I've raced Finke a few times, Hattah, I've done a bunch of enduro crosses. They're sort of events that they put prize money on for. But basically we win races, and my bonus money and my prize comes from Yamaha.
Okay.
You know, or other sponsors.
And the prize money for like Hattah or Finke, does that even cover the costs of getting out there
No,
and
not a
doing
chance.
it? Yeah.
Not a chance.
So you're not doing it for the money. You're
No.
doing it because you love it. You're doing it because you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got the backing of the team, which can enable you to do that.
Yeah,
and
you
race
know.
at the top end.
So when I get a factory ride, like I get everything paid for.
Yes.
My mechanics are paid for. My travel, my accommodation, everything's paid for. I get a salary. I get bonus money. The team makes no money. Like it's just a cost for Yamaha.
Absolutely.
But it's marketing, right?
Yeah,
You win
definitely.
races. You got the best bike. You got the best thing. People buy that bike. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the 4-year-old that wants a Pee-wee wants a Pee-wee because this guy's winning a championship. Of
course.
You know. So that's the game we're part of, and there's no way to tell how much it works.
Yeah, there's no ROI calculation. So
No.
as someone that works in marketing, that's one of the questions we get asked all
Yeah.
the time, and it's sponsorship's the hardest one to quantify,
Yeah,
right?
how do you justify spending $500,000 on a race team?
Yep.
Does that sell $500,000 worth of dirt bikes? Don't know.
Probably.
Probably, but which rider sells the most?
Yeah, and that's where I guess for someone that is a professional dirt bike rider, being good at racing is one thing, but
Yep.
then you've also got media obligations, right? You need to be able to talk on camera, you need to be able to do interviews, you need to be able to represent the brand well, even when you're not racing.
You're always being watched.
Correct.
Everywhere you go, you know.
Yep.
And I can't drive anywhere without someone spotting me or someone, you know. We go to a racetrack, there's a Yamaha guy here. Okay,
Yeah.
who is he? What's he doing? You know. So, I had to be professional everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere, everything. You know, you can't swear. You can't. We go to podiums, well dressed, shoes on. You know. There's when you ride for a factory team, you have to do these
There's
things.
standards, right?
And I agree with it 100%.
Yeah,
You're
of
there to
course.
do a job. You do your job properly, right?
Yep.
So you don't rock up as a lawyer in singlet and thongs.
Yeah,
Right? You're suit and tie. That's your attire. So it's really cool. It is stressful in a way. You've always got to be careful. You know, I can't have the wrong logos on my gear or wear the wrong gear or you know, and sometimes we have things that break and then you can't, you know, you might blow a motor up. You can't then in an interview go, yeah, we blew the motor up, the bike sucks. You can't do that, right? We had some dramas today where we're looking into it. We'll be on, you know, you've got to know how to play the game.
So as part of being a factory rider, did you get media training?
I didn't, because I sort of grew up in an era where it was MySpace.
Yep.
You know, like
Yeah, it wasn't as visible as it is now.
It wasn't as what it is now. And I sort of evolved as it evolved into something, and I started doing the posts and I started doing the race reviews, and you know, and I see it these days. The kids racing at the top level aren't doing enough social media because you can benefit from it, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're good at social media, more companies want to work with you. More companies want to give you free stuff. You know,
More income, right?
More income. Well, it's, you know, saving you money, because all of a sudden, you know, I was good at social media. The guy that used to train me in the gym didn't charge me to train because I brought other riders to the gym, right?
Of course, yeah.
So now I'm not paying $200 a week for a trainer because he knows I'm bringing other people in to make him money.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you're not playing that social media game, then okay, cool, you can win races, and you'll make money, but you won't get the benefits of the other products. You know, I've always had push bike deals. Mm-hmm. I'm a motorbike racer.
Yep.
Half the Australian top mountain bike riders can't get free push bikes. And here I am as a dirt bike rider that doesn't race push bikes, getting free push bikes.
Yep.
Because I had the social media, you know, backing, and, you know, not huge, you know, because our industry is small, but it happens.
Yeah, and I guess you've got your racing calendar, so there's obviously a big commitment, travel. You would have driven around this country however many times.
Too many, yeah.
So then you've also got, I imagine, lots of, you know, training in terms of time in the gym to stay fit, to stay healthy. You've got nutrition you've got to consider.
Yeah.
And then now also for the young guys, they've got to worry about managing social media, which in itself can be quite time consuming.
Yeah, it's a pain, right? And I think people like to see real.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it. When you get to certain level, you know, when you're world class, you know, and you've got millions of followers, okay, it's different. You got to manage it to do that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
my level, I had to just be real. Yeah, I was going for a run. I'd just film it.
Yeah, yeah. People want to see.
Just put it on a story.
And I think there's so much of social media, without getting too deep into this, that's very heavily curated, and
Yeah.
people only represent, this idyllic picture of what their lives
Yeah.
are. But so often, I know for me, the people that I want to follow and engage with are the ones where I feel like I understand who they are as a person.
What they're doing. Yeah, yeah. And that's what I like real people, right? I don't like just the sales thing. And I like to sell product from people who support me in a way that it's real,
Yeah.
I'm out riding my push bike today. It's this brand, but I'm not just putting a post of the bike up going, I got a cool new bike. It's me out riding. I'm not an ad, and I feel like I've done that quite well. And I mean, I've been retired now, and I have so many companies still reaching out going, hey, we'll send you wheels. Hey, we'll send you tyres. Hey, we'll send you push bikes. We'll send, Yamaha's still, helping me out with bikes, so the game I've learned and played is still working. I'm not racing anymore. So realistically, I'm not doing a return in that side.
Yep.
But they still see a benefit
They get
of
the
having me
return
with
from
the social
socials.
media, right? So, it's a big game to play.
Definitely. Well, we're just going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back with you. Okay, so you mentioned Hattah and you mentioned Finke. So are those events part of the AORC or are they standalone events?
No, yeah, so they're a standalone event.
Okay.
Obviously Finke Desert Race is huge.
Yeah.
It's cars and bikes. Every year, June long weekend, Alice Springs, and then Hattah's a month later, July.
Wow.
So Hattah's on actually this weekend right now.
Yep.
The team and all the boys and stuff are down there. They're doing qualifying today.
Yeah, right.
So I've got a bit of FOMO.
Yeah.
Because I do miss the desert stuff. There's nothing better than holding a 450 wide at 160, 170 through the desert. So every year those events are on, I get itchy feet.
Yep.
But then I think about everything that goes into it, and I'm like, it's not so bad. I don't have to do that.
So let's talk about that. So I've been to Finke and I sat trackside and watched these guys and saw a couple of guys come off bikes at full speed, wide open through the whoops, and it's pretty scary. Those events are like next level, right, in terms of how hard they are on the gear, how hard they are on your body. So talk about like the prep. What goes into racing, say, Finke?
Finke's the big one. Finke, you have to know the track. Mm-hmm. So we were spending 8 to 10 weeks a year pre-runner.
Wow.
At $1,000 a day. For the team out there.
Yeah.
So we ended up buying an old 2-wheel drive Hilux and we drove from Queensland across and we just left it in Alice Springs. And then the boys would drive the truck over with all the bikes. And then when we'd pre-run, sometimes they wouldn't take the truck. We'd just fly in. We have a ute. We have toolboxes. We have everything just sitting at one of our sponsors' places in Alice. Mate, the amount of Ks I've done up and down that Finke track, I can't now feel my fingertips.
Really?
Yeah, like carpal tunnel and like, tendonitis in your hand just from holding on for so much. So like, it definitely hurts. It's brutal. We're doing, it's 240 Ks each way. We'd go up and back 4 or 5 times in a week sometimes.
Oh my goodness. So for anyone that hasn't been out to Finke or doesn't know, so it's 240 Ks
one way
from Alice to Finke.
Yep.
And then you stop overnight.
Yep.
And then you go back the next day.
Yep. But pre-running, we go up and back in a day.
Wow. So you're doing close to 500 Ks on some of the roughest tracks and high speed stuff, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, average speed for the race is like 115 to 120 with fuel stops. So, like, we're like 240 Ks, we're sub 2 hours. And it's quicker now. Like, they've graded a lot of stuff now. Back when I was at Finke, it was a fair bit. There was more whoops, continuous whoops. They started breaking the track down because, people just couldn't handle 60 Ks of whoops. So they'd do 10 and then they'd have a break and then 10. So it always changes, but it's a lot faster now, more smoother stuff. But yeah, like 192 we got out of one of my desert bikes on gravel.
Oh my goodness.
I got a GoPro footage on on my Instagram, I think, where I have a full off its head desert bike on the stop for over a minute. I don't blip the throttle. Just a minute, full noise.
Yeah,
and it would be between 170 and 180, 185, because obviously you got hills and the bike would slow and different ground, rock and hard pack and sand. But yeah, 1 minute on the stop. I don't touch it. Don't flip the throttle.
Insane. So you've had some success at Finke?
Yep. Yeah, I've podiumed 3 times. I've won the 450 class a couple of times. I've had a couple of big crashes there.
Yeah.
I crashed the first year I went out pre-run. I didn't do any major damage, just concussion and blew my ankle up a bit. But I crashed at the start of, I'm going to say 2014. I snapped my humerus. So that snapped clean and I had no skin off me. I was doing
Really?
about 150. It's actually, the clip is on the start of the Finke documentary on Netflix at the moment. So one of the first clips is a GoPro.
Yep.
And someone cartwheels. That's actually me.
That's you.
Yeah,
I know
it was-
exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that was the footage from snapping my humerus. So like Ben, my film guy, he was out with us at that trip, and basically I'd done that section a million times that week, and I'd just come through full noise, sitting down, and just hit something that I hadn't seen or must have been a little bit left or right, and it blew both hands and feet off, and grabbed on, tank slapped, and just went, and I was going to crash. So I was like, I'm going to try and lay this thing down and land on it. And I laid it down and landed on my shoulder and
Oh, man.
snapped my humerus. So, but, you know, I flew straight to Sydney, foot long, like a 12-inch plate and 12 screws, and I was back racing in 4 weeks.
Oh, my God.
It was bolted back together. I asked the surgeon.
Built different.
I asked the surgeon. I said, "Oh, you Loctite that thing?" Because I was racing like I think it was 5 weeks I raced. 4 weeks I was back on the bike.
So against all medical advice, I'm sure they would have given you, 12 weeks recovery normally for, I guess, what you'd call a normal person?
No, like 6 to 8 weeks for a bone is what they usually recommend.
Okay.
But as an athlete, like I got home and 2 days later I had a weight vest on climbing Tom Marine Mountain at the Bay. Like I'd walk up and down that thing 2 hours a day.
Is that just mindset? You just wanted to be back and you wanted to be racing?
You just don't have an option, right? If I don't
You
rock
just
up
have
to, so, you know, Finke's a standalone event. If I miss that, okay, cool. But if I miss one round of nationals, series is over.
Yeah, okay.
So your championship bonus at the end of the year is gone.
So realistically, you're just doing Finke for the prestige, for the experience. It's not contributing to the AORC. It's actually, I guess, impacting it negatively, right? Insofar as you can risk everything for your championship just to go and do that event.
Yeah, literally. You know, and then every time we had a week of spare time, we'd be in Alice Springs pre-running for Finke. You know, so I was not home. I'd be at a race. I'd come home and have a week off. I'd be in Finke for a week, and then we'd come home. I'd be traveling to the next race. So it took up a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money from the team. You know, like $1,000 a day easy between 2 mechanics, 2 riders, fuel. You know, the amount of flat tyres in hire cars and cracked windscreens and, you know, damage to running cars and then bikes, you know, like that's not even including bikes and parts. Like, you know, because you're loading the bikes up so much, gearboxes and pistons, you know, like just wear and tear on how many Ks you're doing. It just flogs everything out. So a lot of risk for not much reward. But you podium Finke, you get a bigger following, you get like the brand, Finke's huge, it's massive, right? Hattah is actually a bigger event for a moto world.
Because that's just motorbikes as opposed to Finke, which is cars and bikes.
And Hattah is, you know, 500 to 700 riders between juniors and seniors.
Wow.
And you're all on the track at once.
Oh, so it's not like Finke where they're sending one at a time or groups of riders, it's everyone. That'd be mayhem.
It is you qualify Saturday and then you line up in rows of, I think the pro races, like the senior race is 400 riders. So you got juniors race Saturday. So the qualifying and juniors race Saturday and then the main race is Sunday. They line you up in rows of 100 in your order, right? And it's still seated, right? So what they do is they line you up 1 to 100 and then 101 to 200 all the way through. And a quad sits there and they go, right, you ready? Yep. And the quad just rides along in front at a set speed and you just peel out. So like they have footage from like up in a cherry picker and it's sick. Like that'd
be an amazing experience.
It's unreal. And like I've always qualified fairly well. Like, the last time I raced it, I had an incident with another guy in qualifying, got blown off the track, and I qualified out of the top 20. I think I was 18th or 19th, but I started 19th, and the carnage and the roost, like at 170 on a straight, sand hurts.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, like I finished the race, and like, you know, where we wear like Camelback hydration packs, and they're like pretty hard to clip in. The roost unclips them.
Wow.
You know, you run roll-offs. We run a roll-off system. It's like a clear bit of film on the goggles and you pull a string and it winds it across. It breaks the film. cracks lenses. The Roost is that bad. And when we finish the race, like I wear a body armor, right? Wherever the body armor is just red. Like I'm bruised for the week. Like it's gnarly, the Roost. But yeah, like Finke, you qualify. It's 2 at a time. Finke's a sprint race over Hattah. It's under 2 hours. It sounds like a lot, but for us, that's a sprint race.
That sounds like a lot to me.
No, like it goes by that quick.
Yep.
But then when you're pre-running and you're out there for 5-6 hours, and we'd start pre-running in January, it's 46, 47
Yeah, it's
degrees.
not real friendly out
your
there.
boots are melting.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the race is June, right?
Yeah.
And I remember being out there in June, freezing cold at night, but in the middle of the day, it's like 30 plus degrees. So I can only imagine what it's like out there in summer.
I've seen 48s and 47s out there while we're riding.
And then you add gear.
Yeah.
And then you're physically pushing yourself to the limit.
Yeah, and you're just burning, like your lips burn because of the wind, the dry wind. You just forever chapstick, like you just, and just drinking constantly because your throat's just burning because it's so hot air,
So we've sort of touched on it a little bit, but I guess the physical requirements to be a pro dirt bike rider.
Yeah.
It's a entirely physical activity. So what does the training regime look like? I imagine you'd be spending a lot of time in the gym, lots of cardio, lots of strength and conditioning work, especially.
Yeah. So I mean, it's evolved. So when I started, people who trained were like there wasn't many, right? Everyone was just a weekend rider, and but the level now is like you're an athlete. You have to be. And there's stats out there from people's heart rate monitors, and they just go, no, you can't run like that. Like Hattah's 4 hours. It's nothing for me to run 170 heart rate for 4 hours. Like that's just an average. Like they'd all be doing that.
Wow.
So, and I guess motocross is probably easy to train for in a sense if they do 30-minute motors. So if they were going to do a 30-minute run or something at a high interval, they'd just do 30 minutes.
Yep.
Whereas off-road, I got a 15-minute sprint race one week. The next week I got a 4-hour cross country. The next week I got an 8-hour enduro with sprints in that 8 hours. And that goes for 4 days or 6 days. So how do we train? So off-road is difficult to train for. I run a fair bit. I used to do between 5 and 20 Ks a week. Just, 5K runs. I'd cycle anywhere from 100 to 200 Ks a week. I mountain biked as well as part of that cycling. A lot of my gym stuff trained, the older I got, become more rehab.
Yeah, okay.
You need to be strong and fit to ride a dirt bike, but you don't want to be big. You don't want to be.
Yeah,
I'm a bigger guy. Like I was 85 kilos in my prime, and that was still quite big for a dirt bike rider. Off road, you probably need a bit more size because you're wrestling over a bit gnarlier stuff.
But I guess it's a balance, right? Because if you're big and muscly, then you've got to keep that oxygen up to your muscles. You're putting more strain on your heart and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and you can't maneuver as much. You don't bounce as good. All those things. It's harder to. You're essentially air squatting for 4 hours at Hattah. Well, when you're 100 kilos, that's a lot harder than when you're 80 kilos, right?
For sure.
But then in the desert stuff, you want to be heavy. So for Finke, I'd always try and get in the 90s.
Yeah, okay.
So I'd start the year at 85, and I'd be fit. Come April, I'd start eating more and doing more. I'd get to like 94, 95. And then after that, I'd try and taper it back to 85 to finish the year.
So is it better to be heavier from a riding perspective in terms of how the bike handles, or is it because you're getting so depleted throughout the race?
A little bit of both. So Finke and Hattah a month apart depletes you. But when you hit a whoop at 160, 10 kilos keeps that bike a lot lower.
Yeah.
Right? So like when you hit a big G out or a big thing, when you're 70 kilos, that bike wants to go like that in the air.
Yep.
When you're a bit heavier, it stays down.
Down.
So if you look at all the top guys at Finke, they're all, David Walsh, 90 plus kilos.
Yeah, thick.
Toby Price, 100 plus kilos. Like we're all 6 foot tall. We're all bigger guys. Hattah, you can get away with being a bit lighter, but we'd obviously just get big for Finke, and then whatever we'd end up at by the time we got to Hattah, you'd do Finke, it'd take a week or two to recover, and then you're at Mildura a week before the race to get ready for Hattah, right? So it just
non-stop.
It just doesn't stop, right? And then like the boys are racing Hattah this weekend. 2 weeks time, we're at Queensland for the next round of AORC. So like Hattah kills you 4 hours. Like you are physically just destroyed after Hattah.
Assuming you don't get injured.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine that you've had a few visits to the hospital and you've had a few injuries.
Yep.
So what's the worst injury you've had from racing?
To be honest, touch wood, I've been pretty good injury-wise. Like, I've had some injuries, but, I mean, average that out over 20-odd years of racing, I'm pretty good in that sense. The worst experience I've had, I snapped my humerus in Alice. We drove 60 Ks on gravel road with no phone service in a hire car.
And if anyone here who's listening hasn't driven the Finke road, which runs parallel to the track, I would go so far as to say it's the worst road I've ever driven on. It is the most heavily corrugated, just horrible road, even in a well set up four-wheel drive with really good suspension. So I can't even begin to comprehend what that would feel like with a snapped arm.
Well, yeah, the first 40 was okay because I was, the adrenaline was still in, and I was just like, as my team boss was just driving, I was like, wedged, go. We were doing like stupid speeds, as you do out there. You know, they're doing 160 to keep up with us on the bike in the hire car.
Yes.
So, so we were wedged. By the time I got to Alice, just going up the gutter into the hospital, I was like, if you drive fast, I'm going to kill you. Like, I was like abusing him. And then Alice Springs Hospital is the worst hospital in Australia.
Really?
Yeah, they just have a lot going on.
Of course.
They send a lot of trainees there because no one wants to live in Alice Springs, right? Well, some people do, but like,
yeah, that'd be
send
a
trainees there,
full-on place.
So trainee police, trainee nurse, and doctors, they all go there. They wouldn't give me pain relief. I didn't have my ID.
Oh, yeah.
I was with my team boss. He had his ID, but my ID was in my wallet, which was in the other car, which was still out on the track getting the bikes and the other riders in. So I didn't have my ID. So they were arguing about that. And by this stage, I'm like, my hands are locking because I was in so much like pain. They put the blood pressure bandage on me, and I'd never had morphine at this stage in my career. Like, I'd never had it. And they gave me a hit of morphine. It did nothing.
Yeah, and that's when you know that it's real pain.
And I was like, "Oi, nah, nothing." And they're like, "No, you must be really tolerant to morphine." They gave me another hit. Within a minute, they gave me a third hit. And they were about to give me a fourth hit, which is insane. Like, I didn't know, but that's a stupid amount. Like, that should have been over like an hour, not over like a minute. My team boss screams out and goes, "Oi, blood pressure bandage." So I had 3 hits of morphine in my left arm.
Oh, and it was stopping it from going in.
And the nurse freaked and just ripped it off. So I went from like in pain to just passed out.
To an opiate overdose, basically.
Proper overdose. And I woke up just projectile vomiting, like insane. And then my team boss was like, you're going to kill my rider. Like, what's going, like, you guys need to, like, it was
that
bad.
Could have been real
bad.
It
was bad.
Yeah.
It was a bad situation. They wanted to operate. They wanted to fly someone in. And I'm like, So they put me in a cast. They were Googling what cast because of the break. And I'm watching that going, oh, this
Get me out of
right.
here.
Get me out of here. And they're like, you can't fly. I'm like, okay, no worries. And then they put me in a cast. While the cast was setting, I was biting my lip and moving my arm, trying to make it bigger so I had room because I knew it was going to swell. I was like, I don't want to be cutting this thing off.
Yep.
And I flew out the next morning straight to Sydney. I got super lucky. You know, we know a lot of people in the industry, and phone call after phone call, they got me into a guy in Sydney. He took me straight in before work. He was still in his cycling nicks, having his coffee, and I'm in there going, "Hey mate, what are we doing?" You know, and he's like, "Go to the hospital, do this, do that. I'll be over soon. We'll operate on you." It was supposed to be an easy operation. It took him 8 hours or 9 hours, and he said, for someone my size, he has never seen so much muscle density in an athlete or in anyone.
Yeah, right.
So scalpels go blunt. He went through 3 or 4 to cut through the back of my arm. And like, I don't have big arms. I'm not a big dude, but just because our endurance,
because of all that conditioning,
all we do, right? So yeah, I got the plate in. Raced for 5 weeks, whatever it was, and then I actually started. It started aching about 6 months after I'd raced Finke. It started aching. I'd wake up in the morning, it would ache. So I went into him. I said, "Hey, I need to get these plates out. Like they're playing up."
Yeah.
So again, hour surgery, day surgery. I woke up the next morning going, "Hey, why am I still in hospital?" And he went, "I don't like you. It took me 8.5 hours to get your plate out." So he couldn't find the plate because my bones had grown around it that hard because I'd pushed it so hard.
Yep.
And he said, normally when they pull a plate out, it's twisted, but it's not crazy, right? He pulled mine out, sat on the bench, and it was like a Coke can. Like, it was just mangled. And he said, "I don't know what you do and how much force you put through bones, but your bones must be flexing a lot with the force of riding, you know." And I put that to think. So yeah, I got that out, and my arm's been sweet since. I just got a mad zipper scar down the back of my arm. And
Wow. So, and I think that's the bit for someone like me. Like I've ridden bikes here and there, but never been a rider. Definitely never competed. And I guess watching it as an outsider, I just always go back to the amount of pressure and the amount of strain that riders are putting their bodies through. And I guess you'd say it's a young man's sport or a young woman's sport.
For sure. You know, like I'm, you know, early 30s now, and it hurts. You know, I can still do it. I can still go fast. I don't recover. My worst injury's probably been my knee rebuilds. Mainly for the fact of they just take forever. You know, like ligaments take. You know, I had a knee rebuild in 16, ACL, MCL, meniscus, and it was well, I was supposed to be 9 months. I was back on the bike in 6. Back in the bike in 5 and raced at 6. And it's not so much because, you know, like I'm pushing it. It's it's because I'm pushing it. It's not because I'm pushing what the doctors are saying. It's because, you know, my job is to get better. So, you know, most people get injured, they have a beer and they watch TV. I'm on a cycle bike, or I'm running, or I'm rowing. You know, like I had my knee rebuild halfway through last year. I had a meniscus bucket handle tear where it flips over, so I couldn't straighten my leg, and I had to have surgery. They told me 3 months, and I was back racing in 8 weeks. But the day I got home, the next day I was in the gym on sitting down on a moto stand on my skier doing 30-minute skis.
Because you just have to stay on it,
I have to stay fit, and what people don't realise is blood flow heals. So when you sit on the couch and drink beer, your blood's not flowing. You know, I'm still cycling or rowing or doing weights or whatever, and when it's your job, that's all you do. So like, it'd be nothing for me to go and, like, I broke my arm. I walked 2 hours a day with a weight vest on. I would row twice a day, an hour on the ski to get my heart rate to 160, 170. So the blood's pumping, and that, you know, oxygen and blood flow and everything makes things heal quick. I eat fairly good, you know, like I'm fairly fit. I was fairly fit. So, you know, we heal quite fast. And obviously a doctor goes, hey, you got 6 weeks for a bone to heal. Well, most people that's 4, but they've got to cover their ass. So that's why it's a 6-week thing. But you also got to know your body and know what you can do and what you can't do and what you can push and what you can't push. So, and the other injury I've had that was bad was France. I crashed and compound fractured my finger, ripped the end of it off.
Lovely.
Broke that, ripped all the...
So compound fracture meaning the bone is on the outside of your body,
so the end
not
of the
on the
finger
inside.
peeled open with the bone in it, and I had to like push that back on.
Wow.
I was in France, wildest hospital, ambulance trip of my life, wildest hospital. They took me to one hospital and they're like, we can't operate here. I'm like, okay, so what are we doing? And I'm in like green and gold Australian gear, and I look like a bear's attacking me because I'm just like, there's just grazes and, you know, ripped apart, and I had blood dripping everywhere. They put me in a taxi and sent me 3 hours to another hospital to get operated on. And I'm glad they did it. This hospital was beautiful. It was amazing, like really clean and, you know, super nice. So they operated on me. They left a wire in my finger. And I flew home on the Monday. I got home at midnight on the Monday, I think it was. We flew into Sydney, drove home. And then I drove back to Newcastle at like 4 a.m. Got the red eye flight to Brisbane, straight to the hand specialist, my guy up there. And Stephen Andrews, he's a wizard. He just, okay, let's just see what they've done. So they just scanned me, went over. He goes, they've done a really good job. Like, I'm not going to go in and fix. I didn't know. I hadn't even known what the procedure was. I just saw stitches and a wire hanging out.
And everyone's speaking French, so
no idea. Okay, well, sweet. It's kind of together, you know. So I went to him. He goes, yep, really good. I'm like, he goes, when you got to race? I said, under 2 weeks, I'm racing. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, what are we going to do with this wire hanging out of my finger? He goes, well, we can cut it off now, short, and just leave it stumpy, or fly back in a week, we'll pull it out, and if it re-breaks, we'll fix it later. I'm like, okay, sweet. So I couldn't really do anything because I had a wire hanging out. So they were like, he's like, don't do anything. Because I was like, I want to go home and sit on a cycle bike and whatever. No. So I got home, did nothing, flew back the week later, and he's, craziest thing, they just get the pliers and just pull the wire out of the finger, and you just know nothing, you just
pull it out.
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool to watch, and I watch it in slow-mo and shit, it's pretty wild. But he pulled that out, and it stayed together. And then his hand physio was like stretching my hand. We were tying it, you know, wrapping it and tying it like that for as long as I could. And basically I flew home, and we had heat packs, and every half an hour I'd heat the heat pack up, heat my hand up, stretch it, tape it, ride like that, like sit like that,
Yep.
as long as I could, cut it back off, and I'd just do that religiously. I then had to drive to South Australia. So this was like a Tuesday, like a week after I'd been there. And so I drove to SA and I stopped at every truck, you know,
Yeah.
in the microwave, heat pack, heat it up, strap it, drive as long as I could, pull over, unstrap it. And I did that the whole way to South Australia. We got to South Australia and I couldn't close my hand properly. I could only get the outside 2 fingers were sort of up. So we cut a grip, half a grip, and stuck it to the bottom side of my grip. So I had a fatter handlebar. And Stephen Andrews' crew, I took a hand grip up with me and we put my glove on and they made a mould to go over it. So we strapped my fingers to the mould so that it couldn't really do any more damage. And he just goes, oh, well, you can't do it any worse. Like, worse, we'll just come back and fix it. So I raced and won that weekend. Crashed and broke my other hand because I was hanging on my hand. So I had another crash and I broke my knuckle in my other hand. And then I had 3 weeks and then I had the last round of nationals. I was winning the championship. So I rode with 2 broken hands and
That
won.
is unbelievable, man.
But you just have to.
So 2023,
Yep.
AORC,
Yep.
you finished outright champion
Yep.
and class winner,
Yep.
and then you retired.
Yep.
What was the go? You just decided to go out on top? You'd had enough? What was the sort of thought process behind that?
Yeah, look, a bit of everything. Budgets are getting tighter from COVID with Yamaha and stuff, but living's getting more expensive. So, you know, I've been super lucky. Yamaha's been really good to me, and, you know, it goes both ways, but they paid well and everything was good, but I was like, hey, guys, I just won. I need more money. Life's expensive.
Yep.
And they couldn't do it.
Yep.
So part of me was like, well, do I really need to risk it every weekend to put groceries on the table? Like, do I need to be doing that anymore? You know, a lot of injuries. Like, you know, I did my knee and my hand in the end of 22, and then I did my knee halfway through 23. And I just got sick of waking up sore and injured. You know, like I just got to a point where I was like, oh, I don't need to be doing this anymore. And then I've won a lot of, I think I've won 9 Australian titles, class titles. This was my first outright. This is what I've been chasing for my whole career, right? To win an outright AORC, and I won it. And I went, you know what? Why come back next year and get 10th?
Yeah, you've done it.
Like, I've done it. Let's just pack up shop and happy
Amazing.
days. So, yeah, pulled the pin and don't regret it at all. Like, I thought I was going to struggle and, you know, I get itchy feet, but I've been racing the push bike now. So I get my fix from racing pushies.
And it must be hard after being at that top level for so long, and I guess your whole life really revolved around racing, and then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, well, I don't have to train now. It's quite good. I get up and just go, I'll go drive the digger today, you know, like.
Yep.
And I was track building and doing all that sort of stuff the last few years anyway. But yeah, I don't have to do anything now. The problem I have is, like, I was going to go to a state round the other week and I was like, I'm going to win. But I haven't done a day's training and I've barely ridden. But I'm going to win, right? And I start sitting there going, you're going to get injured or like... And then it rained and it was terrible. And I was like, I just didn't go. I was like, oh, I don't have to do this stuff anymore.
Yep.
I just didn't go. I just didn't go to the race. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have to go. So that's kind of cool. I'm still heavily involved in the sport though. So Motorcycling Australia has, rules are changing, insurance is changing, everything's getting harder. So they've now employed me to go to the AORCs, and basically I'm the course assessor. So I rock up a couple of days before. I ride all the tracks, I check all the tracks, I make changes if it's unsafe or, you know, like there's been miscommunication with the club and MA or whatever's going on. I just make sure the event's as good as we can get it, as safe as we can get it, tick the boxes, and then I help stay and run the events. And some of the tracks this year, I've ridden on the Thursday and been like, oh, I wish I was racing this.
Yeah,
this would be cool.
get the itch again. Yeah.
But then by like Saturday afternoon, I'm riding around the track checking it, and I'm going, thank God I don't have to ride this thing wedged anymore. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
can
all
just cruise.
chopped up
Yeah,
and
it's
nasty.
terrible. And it's like they've had a few really dusty rounds, and I'm like, I don't have to. I can just ride around the side and check the track. Like, so it's cool. I'm still at the event. I'm still get to see my old team, my old friends, and I'm still involved. And I feel like I'm helping the sport get better. You know, I'm trying to make it safer. It's been something we've been arguing for a few years. Is we'd rock up to certain clubs and there'd be high speed with big rocks everywhere. I'm like, hey, if it's rocky, cool, slow it down. You know, like you still got to. And their mindset was, use the pro racers, just race it. Yeah, cool, but we're also going to win. So if it's, you know, a far straight, but there's rocks everywhere, we're going to pin it and risk it, right?
Yeah, and someone's going to get hurt. Yeah.
We have to. So, you know, there's a difference between a good racer and one with no brain, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm all for making tracks hard and difficult, but if it's difficult and sketchy, just slow the speed down. We'll still have good race. Everything's still good. So I feel like what I'm trying to achieve by coming on board with MA is just to make sure the riders get better racing, safer racing, you know, tracks are fairer, tracks are marked properly. And then I also try and help the juniors out as much as I can. I go and give them tips and hang out and help and, you know, Yahoo and things like that. So, and I still do my coaching at home and train the army to ride dirt bikes as well. So I'm still got my coaching business. So I'm still heavily involved in the sport, but yeah, just don't have to get up and run in the morning and
That's pretty cool.
don't have to do the gym anymore. And yeah.
Okay, so you're still heavily involved in the racing world, but now you can eat a bit more and you don't have to train quite as hard, which is, I guess, a good reward for you after many, many years at the top of the sport. So how are you feeling your days now? What are you doing?
Yeah, so through COVID, I started building mountain bike trails. There was no racing, no coaching, so I like mountain bikes still, I like building stuff. So I started building tracks and I really enjoyed that. And I started my own business 12 months after that. So it's sort of been a side hustle, but the last sort of 12 months I've been ramping that up, knowing that I was going to hang the boots up from racing full time. So yeah, basically just been building mountain bike trails for different clubs and private, you know, people want tracks in their backyard and pump tracks in backyards and done a couple of commercial jobs. We've done a few BMX tracks. So basically just building a lot of bicycle tracks.
Yeah, cool.
Which is cool. And it's cool because it's a passion of mine that I really enjoy. So it kind of doesn't feel like I'm at work, even though it is. And then now moto becomes my hobby again. So I'm really enjoying moto again. And then I love helping people, you know, get better. So the coaching thing, I've had a coaching business called Off-Road Advantage. I've had that for nearly 9 years now.
Okay.
So, you know, training all levels of riders, pro guys, beginners, you know, weekend warriors. And then I said before, the army, you know, that's been a cool thing. The last few years, I've been on base at the army base training guys that have never ridden dirt bikes to ride dirt bikes.
Wow.
So, they, you know, from the start of the Monday, they've never sat on a dirt bike to Friday, they're riding gnarly tracks, you know, night vision goggles, over logs, you know,
really?
the kit and caboodle. Like, it's pretty cool to see that transition from someone who's never ridden to the fifth day they're riding, you know, as good as most average people can ride. So it's pretty rewarding for me to be able to do that. And just like seeing people that struggling with riding to then go away at the end of the day super stoked and riding better and safer. I sit there and go, that's priceless.
Must be super rewarding work.
That's a reward for me. So I really, really enjoy the coaching side of things. And then, yeah, mountain bike trails. Cool.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, look, Josh, it's been absolutely awesome to have you on the show. It's been really interesting for me to get a bit of an insight into the life of a pro dirt bike rider.
Yeah.
So, look, I really thank you for your time. If people want to find you, where's the best place?
Oh, just Instagram and Facebook, Josh Green 99.
Yep.
And then from there, you can find my coaching and digging pages because I share everything across.
Yeah, of course.
Off-Road Advantage is my coaching page, and then Off-Road Advantage Excavation and Trail is the trail business thing. So they're all linked. They're all together. They're all there. And then same Facebook, same thing.
Nice one.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks again.
Thank
It's been
you.
great, and we'll see you guys next time on the outer side.
Sounds good.